see you guys in the dark.
In December of last year, I was 21 at the time, and I met Nick, 22, on Hinge. I thought that he was very handsome, and he went to a good school for a D1 sport. Before we first met, he seemed incredibly respectful and asked me many questions, trying to get to know me. The first time that we hooked up was an odd experience. He asked me how I did on the stat, wouldn't stop complimenting me about my rosy red cheeks, and then he put a used Zen in my mouth as we were making out, and stole my lighter as an excuse to return to see me again. He told me that he had lost tens of thousands of dollars gambling in the past. Obviously, my judgment was questionable, but I continued hooking up with him as I found him endearing, and he still seemed like he was a very sweet boy. He went to school in another city, so I saw him a few times over the next couple of months. When he would come back to our hometown, the red flags started to show, and in retrospect, I really should have dipped at that point. The third time that we hung out, he asked to take me on a date, but he was 2.5 hours late and brought me to a Blaze Pizza, where I had watched him eat an entire pizza as I twiddled my thumbs. After the date, he confessed to me that he was an alcoholic. Later on, I had found out that he was a drug addict too, and had become sober after a couple of stints in rehab during his freshman year of college. He told me a story about how he got one of his scars. He was harassing a woman in a gas station parking lot in high school, and her boyfriend hit him. So he beat him up, escaped on his bicycle, and a random passerby had pushed him off. He also had a minor fit when he realized I was wearing a coat made for men, and had cut my hair shorter when I had met him. Eventually, we became exclusive and started dating. When I said yes to dating, he was so happy that he cried tears of joy. That night, he confessed to me that he came from a billionaire family. We dated for 6 months after that, and I was exposed to depths of addiction and idiocy, especially around money, that were unimaginable to me. For example, he would book express Amtrak tickets when arriving to the station instead of ahead of time, spending hundreds of dollars each time. He would rack up thousands of dollars in Uber bills on his family's account. His parents paid him $50 an hour to walk the dog, and he worked for a charity his mom had set up, paying him $30 an hour. But he was still somehow always broke. His mom would go back to school shopping for him and spend tens of thousands on his clothing, which he never had an occasion to wear because he was functionally unemployable. He was a terrible boyfriend, overly demanding and very shady with other women. He was incapable of taking no for an answer. He told me many stories from his addict days, including when he had tried meth that a dealer had given him as a free sample, when he'd lost over 20K getting scammed at a casino by a con man, or when he got robbed by a hooker and her pimp. I really thought that he was a changed man. About 3 months into our relationship, he had started gambling again. I'd never seen a real addict in action, and it was mind-boggling to me. He would spend any time he could at the casino. He'd be there all night, I mean from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., or leave his internship early so that he could do this during the afternoon. He rapidly started losing lots of money, but no one in his family had realized. He would imply that he knew how much money was in my bank account and the PIN on my card, and I knew that he owed people a lot of money, so I changed all of my codes. About 2 months later, his father's alcoholism became a major problem, and the father was sent to rehab. My boyfriend then started drinking again. Within 2 weeks, he broke up with me and slept with another woman. By the end of the relapse, he was drunk 24/7 and would call me threatening me and flexing his superior education on me. No one in his family had realized he was drinking again, and I ended up telling his sister what had happened. Within 24 hours, they had sent him back to rehab, the same rehab the father was in, which was $1,200 a night. The rehab center had said that only the father or the son could stay, but not both. So the father had kicked the son out to a much lower quality place. Eventually, my boyfriend got out of rehab and entered a halfway house. But I told him that I no longer wanted to be with him, so he left the halfway home and immediately came to my house. A few weeks later, I found out about the other woman, and I also started to question him about a formal that he had gone to for 2 days before we started dating. When I ended things for good, he lost his mind. He threatened to email my nudes to my father and my job. He even threatened to file a police report if I didn't give him $1,000 in cash to compensate him for any dates that we had gone on. Then he threatened to have me institutionalized through the Marchman Act. Later on, I decided to look that up and found out that it was only in Florida and not in the state that we lived in. He was obsessed with me going to his friend's engagement party with him, and when I blocked him everywhere, including email, he messaged me through Spotify, threatening me if I didn't go with him. He also heavily implied that he put a hidden camera in my room and had given me an STD. It was a crazy ride. I should have gotten out a much, much earlier. But it does make for a good story, and there are a thousand more entertaining aspects to it that I didn't even have room for. Like him suing his school because he failed two classes from not turning assignments in, his obsession with the size of his younger brother's penis, and his brother's crazy ex-girlfriend who was harassing me throughout the entire relationship. I understand her now. I'm a 17-year-old girl, and when I was 14, I liked older guys, and not guys who were 1 year older than me. I mean, 3 to 4 years older. That's when I met my ex. He was 17 at the time, and he was a really sweet guy, until he started opening up about his mental health and drug addiction. Don't get me wrong, I don't judge him for being mentally unstable, but he never took his prescriptions, and he just threw tantrums all day, verbally abusing me, and overall didn't care about me. I was with him for 2 years, until one day he finally blocked me. Basically, he ended our relationship, and I never heard from him since. Well, until 2 months ago. I came from school one day, and I looked into the mailbox, because I saw an envelope. It was usually for us to receive envelopes unless it was a bill. But it wasn't a bill. It was one meant for letters. I put it in my purse and went inside the house. I went into my room after I said hi to my mom, and then I opened up the envelope. There was no returning address or something like that, but my name on the letter caught my attention. I never received letters from anyone, and I was worried to see a signature that I didn't recognize on it. I started reading the letter. Well, hardly, because the writing was very awful, and the person who sent it was telling me how they regret letting me go and they want me back. I thought that one of my friends was playing a stupid prank on me, so I brushed it off and put it in my drawer, laughing about the situation. Later at night, I was about to go to sleep when an unknown number had showed up on my screen. I looked at the screen confused because I barely received such weird calls for unknown numbers. I didn't really pick it up, but I thought that maybe it was one of my friends trying to pull one of their prank calls on me. As usual, I had picked up and heard breathing. Hello, I said, but there was no answer. Beatrice? Are you this bored that you're wanting to pull pranks on me? Still no answer, just heavy breathing from the other end. All of a sudden, I heard this voice. Who's Beatrice? My eyes were wide open, and I hung up. I stared at the ceiling in disbelief, and I put my phone on silent mode, and then I just went to sleep. I didn't think for 1 second that this call was about to be the beginning of my biggest nightmare ever. I woke up the next morning with several calls from that unknown number, and I got a little scared. I opened up my phone and saw messages from the same person, telling me to pick up and to just talk to them. I tried to ignore it, but the calls and messages continued even after I got to school. When I was outside the school gates and smoking a cigarette with my friend, I got a call again. I answered and gave an upset answer. Dude, who the fuck are you? Why are you calling me? The person sat in silence for a few seconds, then said my friend's name. They had heard their name and asked who I was on the phone with. You are with my friend's name, aren't you? Of course you are. I can see you. I looked around and didn't see anyone other than my other schoolmates. There were only 6 people around us, and nobody was on a call. I got creeped out, and I hung up on him. I recognized the voice, and it was my ex's. I told my friend that he kept calling me and texting me from an unknown number since last night, and that I didn't know what to do. She said that I really can't do anything about it, and that I should just ignore the calls. But as the time went on, I started to get more letters, sometimes even flowers, right next to the fence of my home. My ex was in another city, and I never told him where I lived. He knew what school I went to, but never which class I was in. Then I started to get single roses once a week on my desk when I got to school. My classmates told me that they never saw the person who had brought the flowers because they were there by the time that they got to class. I was really paranoid at this time. I started to receive pictures of me and my friends outside of the school gate, sometimes even when I was alone. I was shitting my pants whenever I saw the unknown number pop up on my screen with a picture attached to the message. I finally had enough one day. I called his number that was saved in my phone. I called him, but he never picked up. I started texting him on the apps that I didn't get blocked on and told him to stop, or I will contact his boss and complain about his behavior. That I would even make fake complaints about his service at work and that he'll get fired. He really needed the job, so he left me alone for like a week. But then I started to see him on the streets, in public transport, and outside of my school. Mind you, this dude lived in another country by the time we broke up, and only came back when he started texting me once again. I had asked some of his friends about the time he got back, and they told me that he came back into our home country the day that I started getting the calls. I could barely leave the house after I found out that he knew my school schedule. and I always asked one of my classmates who lived nearby to pick me up with their car on their way to school. One day I wasn't so lucky, and my classmate who used to drive me to school was sick and couldn't show up, so I had to take the bus that day. When I got on my bus, I saw his blonde, wavy hair, and I just froze. I literally wanted to cry and didn't know how to get out of the bus without him getting off at the same time. In my country, we're not supposed to talk to the driver while he's driving, but I had no other choice than to ask him not to let him off the bus. I explained the situation, and he was thankfully understanding. He didn't let him off the bus. He was banging on the glass door and screaming to be let off at the stop, but the driver just kept the door shut and drove off. I sighed in relief and started crying while I was waiting for another bus to come. It's been a month since school had ended. I haven't seen him after that, but I'm scared that he might come back when school starts. Police won't do anything about it. And I even started getting threatening letters 2 weeks ago. I carry a pocket knife with me when I go out, and I even changed my phone number, but I don't know what else I can do. This happened to me late in the afternoon yesterday. I had just finished buying some snacks from the gas station when a man had approached me as I was walking home. It was dark out, so the only thing I could make out was that he was just about 2 inches taller than me, had a green jacket, and a hood on. He also had fair skin. He had asked me what's in my backpack. I try walking away, but he grabs my bag and refuses to let me go. He demands that I hand him the bag. I tried my best to plead with him, saying that he could have the food inside if he was hungry. He didn't care. He just kept fighting me for the bag. I did my best holding my ground and putting up a fight. Several drivers had sped past me, but none of them bothered to stop and help me. I was all alone on a dark and empty sidewalk. This gas station was in a pretty ghetto part of town. A bunch of drug addicts and violent people. I used to live there, so I knew that the cops would regularly be called out into that neighborhood. I'm glad that I managed to escape that environment 2 years ago. Eventually, the man removes his hand from his pocket, and I start fearing for the worst. I almost expected him to pull out a knife, but thankfully it was only just his fist. He begins banging his fists hard against mine to the point where they start to bleed. I couldn't take it anymore, so I handed him the bag and watched him run off. There was only some chips and juice in there, so it's not like I lost anything super valuable. I walked the entire way home, constantly looking over my shoulder, just in case that bastard came back for more. I didn't call the police because I knew nothing would be done about it. I barely even had a description of the guy, so they wouldn't really have anything to go off of. I'm currently at work with a bandaged hand, trying my best to get through the day despite the pain. I hope the guy who did all this ends up messing with the wrong person and gets the hell beaten out of him. I wish I never went to that neighborhood. I wish that I had stayed home that night.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.